My name is David Nolan. I'm the host of Actuary Voices, the podcast from the American Academy of Actuaries. Today, we're in conversation with Christian Benjaminson, an actuary in the pensions practice area, a member of the Academy's Pension Practice Council, and chair of the Multi-Employer Plans Committee. Christian, welcome to Actuary Voices.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me on the show. Happy to be here.
We're delighted to have you too. Christian, we generally start these with a bit of background about where you're from, personal information, and so on. So why don't you start there?
Okay. Yeah, I'm originally from Charlottesville, Virginia, but my family moved to Calvert County, which is just outside of Washington, D.C., when I was in about fifth grade. So I was fairly young. My parents still live in that house, and I consider Washington, D.C. home. I'm a very pro Washington, D.C. sports fan. I cheer for all the teams, which can be a blessing, but also a curse. And about 15 years ago, we moved to Philadelphia, which adds to the frustration with being a Washington, D.C. fan. Bounced around a little bit, but generally Washington, and now recently here in Philadelphia.
And how did you become an actuary? What was your path towards becoming a math genius?
Yeah. I've always been naturally gifted at math. Went to college to pursue math, of course, but also at the beginning, I was interested in science. But quickly in my freshman year, I realized I was not naturally gifted at science. And I devoted all my attention, really my strength and my love for math won out. And I pursued a degree in mathematics. And then I guess I'd always figured in college I would go on to grad school and pursue studies further. But something about my senior year and just being, whether it was done with school or burned out a little bit, I wanted to shift to see, to get into the workforce. So I remember going to the career center at my campus, talking to the career counselor about what could I do with a degree in mathematics. And top of the list was actuary. And, she didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was, but we started researching, really saw, everything that it could encompass. It was, it's probably all meant to be, but the timing worked out that there was a actuarial career fair in Washington, D.C. at the time. So we actually organized a group of people. We went to the career fair, and I got really excited and kept pursuing it. And then, started applying to different firms in the DC area. I was originally hired by Milliman, which is in the Tyson's Corner area. And then I moved to Chiron in 2002. Been there ever since.
Right. So you weren't one of these people who went to university and actually with the aim of passing a few exams before you graduated. It was something that emerged over the 4 years.
That's right. Absolutely right. I did not have any exams. And it's funny, the kind of burnout of school to then take a job that required 10 years of continued studies and taking exams, is just ironic in the end. But yeah, no exams out of college and, jumped into studying while working and that trek.
Great. And Milliman took a punt on you, I guess, and it worked out.
Yeah.
Fair. You've got quite a lengthy volunteer record with the Academy. Can you tell me a little bit about how you came to meet the Academy and what encouraged you to become a volunteer?
Yeah. I was contacted about joining the multi-employer plans subcommittee back in 2015. We were a subcommittee at the time, so I thought that was a great opportunity to join, my peers from other firms and really dig into multi-employer and really help stakeholders, Congress, staffers really understand multi-employer. I'm assuming your listeners are aware, but if not, multi-employer is in a funding crisis across the country. So a number of plans are running out of money, and that also put PBGC in jeopardy of also running out of money. So significant work had to be done.
Christian, can I just stop you there? Can you say a few words about what multi-employer plans, how they're different from other plans, and what the PBGC is and does?
Okay, Sure. So multi-employer would be different than your traditional single employer or corporate plan for a number of reasons. They're first jointly trusteed, so there's the union trustee side as well as the employer trustee side. And, kind of like the name would say, that there's multiple employers in the plan. So some plans can be as little as, 2 or 3 employers, but then some of our bigger plans are in the, 500 to 1,000 employers. And so what's nice about the plans is that a worker can work for employer A, change to employer B and still maintain their pension and their service and their vesting, and then ultimately retire with a pension from collectively all the service that they earned from all the employers. And then PBGC, there are 2 insurance programs. There's their single employer plan, and then their multi-insurance plan. And it's the multi-side that was under pressure because of the funding issues going on in the multi-employer sector. So like I said, the plans were on the verge of running out of money, some very significant plans, and then that put pressure on PBGC, potentially running out of money as well.
And the PBGC is a Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sure. You say that multi-employer plans are in crisis. I've seen there's been some news about possible good news from Congress, but could you tell us a little bit about what that news was, how bad the crisis is, and has it been alleviated?
Okay. Yeah, the American Rescue Plan Act was passed here in March. We did have to wait a bit to see how PBGC would interpret some of the rules, and that guidance came out in July. So I think it is good news for plans that were on the verge of running out of money, because it will pay full benefits for through 2051, so for about 30 years. Unfortunately, I think really we need to take a step back and look at this as really a temporary solution. It doesn't cure the plans forever. And in fact, it really is only focusing on plans that meet certain eligibility within the next 2 or 3 years. So there's bound to be plans outside of this window that fall into trouble and still need help. And then there's some mechanics of the law that just will only keep the plan solvent for maybe 25 years or so, which is still, a good period of time. It corrects the immediate funding issues that were about to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. It corrects the PBGC's multi-employer program as well. But it really is kind of just pushing it out for a handful of years. And quite frankly, that's where the Academy can still be helpful with Congress and staff to come up with the next round of pension reform and looking at ways to strengthen the system going forward.
Sure. And what percentage of multi-employer plans do you consider are underfunded or in crisis?
So I think this legislation will impact around 200 plans. There's roughly 1,200 plans total in the universe of multi-employer. So on that respect, it's, upwards of 10% or so. In terms of participants, I think the number ranges from anywhere from 1 million participants to 3 million participants. And there's probably over 10 million participants total in the industry. So a decent amount, a decent portion of the total universe. But I think what's different is these are very large plans across the country, and some of the largest plans in the country are on the verge of running out of money. So something had to be done, and we ended up with the legislation passed in March.
Sure, but work still to be done, as you say.
Right.
Yeah. And is multi-employer or multi-employer plans the sole focus of your volunteer work?
Yes.
As if that wasn't enough.
Right. Yes, I'm the been on the multi-employer plans committee for about 7 years in total. I've moved to vice chair, and then for the last 2 years, I've held the chair role. But yeah, we're solely focused on multi-employer. And like you said in the intro, I am on the Pension Practice Council. But in that regard, I do speak towards the work that we're doing on our committee with multi-employer plans.
And I must commend you on your modesty. You were awarded for your volunteer work at the Academy last year, weren't you?
I was. That was very nice recognition.
You got an outstanding volunteer award, one of a small handful that are handed out every year. So congratulations.
Thank you.
And To go back to where I started, maybe, what encouraged you to become a volunteer? Because it is widespread for people to be volunteering in some things, but what encouraged you particularly?
Yeah. I think, and it's honestly what I enjoy about my job too, but I think just making a difference. We work on complex situations that, uh, it's not easily understood, the work that we do with consulting to these plans. And there's a lot of ins and outs of what goes into a multi-employer plan and how different legislation can impact plans differently. So I think overall, if you take a big step back, I think I just wanted to make a difference in the legislation, the efforts that were underway, and then just try to help. I love the Academy's efforts of educating stakeholders, and with what we were facing, and the numerous proposals that were out there, and they all did different things and kind of attacked the problem different ways, but just really to help kind of help educate Congress and their staff towards coming up with a effective solution to ensure. I mean, what's at stake is millions of Americans and their pensions and retirement security. So again, making a difference and trying to help.
And is that what you said? That was what encouraged you to become a volunteer. Is that also how you see your profession, your paid work? Do you see it similarly?
I do very much. I really enjoy, I think the one thing I like the most about the work, my day-to-day work, is problem solving. I love the fact that every day at work is different. I'm not working on projects, don't take a day, but over time, projects will be different, and new projects will come and need a different way to solve their problem. So I really do enjoy the kind of tackling a new project and trying to help a client overcome a situation or work their way out. And then the idea of making a difference with, my clients and their participants is also very enjoyable.
So do you have any specific examples that you'd be willing to share with us on that?
Yeah, a couple actually. I think one from my consulting side, and then another from the academy side, if I could give both. I think for the consulting, in terms of problem solving and really making a difference, I think, in 2017, a new law was passed, the Multi-Employer Pension Reform Act. And this allowed plans that were on the verge of running out of money, that were in hardship, to apply for benefit reduction. And if that was not enough to kind of fix the plan, they could apply separately for what's called partition. And that's where a plan can kind of carve off liability to PBGC if it helps the plan remain solvent. So I had a client that was eligible for both pieces. This was quite the undertaking, a lot of analysis and meetings to assess whether we would apply. At the end of the day, we did apply, developed a huge application to Treasury for the first part and PBGC for the second. Participant notices, participant mailings that went out. We actually had town hall phone calls where participants could call in and ask questions. At the end of the day, we succeeded. We were the first plan in the country to receive this joint approval for suspension and partition. And I think just, what I enjoy about the job is the problem solving. So this was exactly that, trying to, see how we could apply to this newly enacted law, and then really just making a difference, feeling proud that I was part of this solution, a part of the team that helped correct their funding and able to maintain these pensions for these workers. And then I think it's interesting the what I enjoy also on the committee is the same thing. And there we're helping educate lawmakers. I've enjoyed the Academy's webinars to be a part of. Most recently, the American Rescue Plan Act. We've done several Hill briefings where we set up presentations over several weeks. So it's a series where we dug into multi-employer plans. And I think one of my favorites is the Hill visits that we've done. We just did one this year virtually, but I think I really enjoyed the in-person. The Academy did a great job setting up meetings over 2 days. And so we broke up into our small groups. We went around the Hill We talked to all different offices, asking them what they were working on for retirement policy, but then being able to share what our committees were working on in terms of, projects with the academy and issue briefs we were working on. So I was there to talk about multi-employer and, of course, being able to answer any questions they had about the various proposals that were going on at the time. So, really enjoy being able to help and both on the client side and, of course, on the academy side.
Well, it's great to hear that you enjoyed them so much, because I know both on your end, on the volunteer actuary end, and on the staff end, an awful lot of work goes into setting all those up. So it's great that you enjoy them rather than seeing them as a chore. And also, it's wonderful to hear that your work is impacting the lives and livelihoods of so many people. That must be very rewarding when you turn off the lights at the end of the day and said, I made a difference.
Yes, absolutely.
And well, that leads very nicely into my next question, which is about some of the professional challenges you faced during your career. Obviously, we don't want to talk specifics, but have you got any thoughts about some of the ones that you've faced and how you've resolved them?
Yeah, I think overall the biggest challenges for me as a consultant, I think, is maintaining consistency and, at the end of the day, honesty. And I think consulting can be very, very difficult work. We don't always go into a meeting with the greatest news, and often it's not really what the client wants to hear. And so I think we really have a big responsibility as consultants to be honest and truthful. And so the clients can first understand what we're there to report and the impact it has on the plan, but then also to be able to shift gears and say, okay, well, how do we overcome this? What changes can we make to mitigate this risk that's come about? And I remember early in my career, I was preparing for a meeting that we had some difficult results to present. And I was practicing my part, trying to get ready. And I found myself trying to make it maybe a more rosy picture, or trying to downplay the significance of the results. And the lead consultant kind of pulled me inside and said, that's not what we should be doing here. We need to tell them, lay it all out, be honest with them with the results and the impact, and then help them overcome it. And I really appreciate that advice. And it's now that I'm the lead consultant on my clients, I do remember that. And I think the clients, especially in multi-employer, I was telling you, it's jointly trusteed. So we work for, two sides, but ultimately the plan and the participants. And I think the idea of being consistent builds trust. And then the honesty that they know that we're going to come in there and give it to them straight, and then try to help them overcome and develop a good solution, going forward, I think is what I've learned, and probably the biggest challenge, I think, overall for consulting.
I'm sure it is. But that
if I could add a little bit more, I just love the fact that the number one precept in the Code of Professional Conduct is honesty and integrity. And I think if you read it, it goes on to say to do our work with skill and care. And I think what a great first principle that is for all actuarial work. And it really just goes to show the importance. And if, you take a step back and say, I'm going to be honest and transparent with the numbers, and I'm going to do the right thing even when nobody is looking, and, present that to the clients and, help them from there. I just think that's a great kind of basis for actuarial work for all practices.
Words to live by, indeed. Words to live by. Okay. I've heard and read that there are some challenges facing the actuarial profession, and perhaps particularly the pension area, given the move away from defined benefit to defined contribution plans. Have you any thoughts about that, and how some resolutions might come about?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that is a challenge for pensions overall. I think multi-employer, again, with a unique makeup, what makes them different from other plans. I think overall, we need to continue working to ensure that these millions of Americans can have a safe and sustainable retirement. And like I said, the American Rescue Plan Act was a temporary fix, but I think more needs to be done overall in terms of pension reform. And like you said, I think new plan designs that suit a 21st century workforce where they're maybe more mobile or they're likely to change jobs, but also, the risks inherent in the plans that we can share those between the two groups. So I think variable plans, which does our plans that share the risk mainly with investments, I think we will see those gain popularity, and they really could be a good solution for, like I said, a 21st century workforce where things are changing. But I do see, need for better transparency and the idea that benefits can go up and down, because quite frankly, we're seeing that now with traditional plans. That if we can be more transparent with the participants and then they can know in advance that this shift and these adjustments could happen, I think that's overall better for the industry and for the participants.
So not everything is rosy, but not everything is doom and gloom either.
Right.
Yeah, great. I'd like to now move on to you and your life. What do you do for fun? You obviously avoid Philadelphia sports stadiums.
Yes. Yes, I definitely do. I did go. I'm a huge football fan. I am a fan of the Washington football team. My father and I had season tickets for almost 20 years. And, COVID, we stopped going because of COVID. And, it's to be seen whether we're going to go back. We're just not sure. I did go to a couple away games in Philadelphia, and I have to say I kept my jacket zipped up. I did not wear my burgundy and gold. Otherwise, I may not have made it out of the stadium. I have two young kids, 13-year-old daughter and a 10-year-old son. My wife and I, we love theater. We recently took my son to see Wicked in New York City 2 weeks ago. That was a blast, a treat for him. But yeah, overall, I mean, being a dad, I'm my son's den leader in Cub Scouts. So I grew up in Cub Scouts. All my brothers and I all did. So I really want, the lessons and leadership that you can learn from scouting. I really, want to give that to my son and be a part of that with him. So those are some of the examples of what takes up my time.
And is your preference for musical theater, or do you do all types?
I think our family right now, with the age of our kids, I think musical theater is where we are. We were playing Shrek the Musical on repeat in our house. And so everybody knows the words. We haven't actually seen that one live, but we've seen the recordings. So yeah, I think as they get older and we get into different types, we can broaden our spectrum, but that's where we are right now.
Sounds good. And I was a Cub Scout and a Venture Scout when I was growing up in Dublin in Ireland, and certainly learned a lot of skills that were useful far beyond their immediate apparent use.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Christian, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Yes, absolutely.
I've been in conversation with Christian Benjaminson, Chair of the Multiemployer Plans Committee. And my name is David Nolan. I'm the host of Actuary Voices, the podcast from the American Academy of Actuaries. Please visit our website, actuary.org, for a wealth of information about the work that the Academy does. And you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn as well. And of course, please subscribe to this podcast on your preferred podcast platform.